Fellowship family, to this week's episode of the Deeper Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Congdon, back after a break, a great vacation to Colorado. Thanks for asking. And I'm here with Elder Rich. Beef McKee is his middle name. Rich, what's your actual middle name? Wait, Deacon, guess Rich's middle name?
Beef.
Wow. Boo. Rich, what's your middle name?
Alan.
Goodness. I mean, you've been on enough. I should probably have known that. And we are joined by intern, normally behind the scenes, but now in front of the camera, Dekan Ginger Vanderbuilt. Rich, what's Deacon's name? What's his middle name?
It's Jacob.
Oh, wow. Solid guess. I'm going to go with Esau because that makes more sense with the
Stewart.
Stewart?
I don't really tell people that though.
Okay.
So.
Well, now nobody's listening to this, so nobody will know.
All right.
Is it EWART or UART?
EWART.
Is it a family name?
Yes.
Okay, Deacon Stewart. Oh, I don't know. It sounds pretty classy. I don't know why you wouldn't use it more often.
It doesn't really. I feel like it doesn't really match up
with the rest of your name,
yeah.
Deacon and the Vanderbilt. It does kind of seem kind of stodgy and old school for Deacon, especially Deacon spelled Dekan.
Yeah, because you got like a Dutch last name, and then you got whatever Deacon is, and then you just got Stewart, which is like. Is that like English or American?
It's gotta be. Yeah.
So it does not really fit in. It looks weird on my driver's license, but I don't really tell people that. I just give them my middle
I
initial.
feel honored. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. How vulnerable of you. I'm sorry I forced you into sharing that. Okay, so Deacon, summer intern, how many more days you got left?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday is your last day.
Not next Tuesday, the Tuesday afterwards. We get back from summer camp is my last day.
Okay. Tell the people who don't know what you've been doing. What does it look like for you to be an intern this summer?
Yeah, so I've been doing part-time in both student ministry and our communications department.
Yeah.
I've kind of drifted away from the communications these last couple of weeks because I've been so busy with student ministry stuff and getting ready for summer camp.
Nice.
But yeah, I've been helping out with a lot of the activities for summer camp and the surge days on Wednesdays.
Great.
And on the communication side of things, occasionally I'll take photos for young adults, and I've recorded and edited every single promotional video for Surge.
Oh, which is a weekly thing. They're making weekly promos for the most part.
It's been fun.
Okay, that is great. And tell them a little bit of background. How does this communications and student internship fit into your kind of life plans, goals right now?
Yeah, so I'm studying news and sports media at K-State, and they don't typically allow people who had just finished their freshman year into some of those sports fields right away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They'd like to have you finish like your sophomore or maybe even your junior year. And so this was like the summer I saw it as an opportunity to do something I actually enjoyed doing. Dude. Not that I don't like news and sports media, but I knew I'd have a lot of fun here. So if you didn't know already, I did apply last year, and they told me I was too young.
Too young, right? Yeah, we don't really do that. Yeah.
I had to wait another year.
But that's perfect. You waited a year, and it wasn't a year where you could have done a sports internship. So that's great. So I'm so glad.
It's nice to know that I wasn't falling behind on the people who are in the same
boat as you and the same major and all that stuff. Yeah.
So I've learned a lot of video editing. I'm used to doing more photography stuff, and so video editing was not my strong suit coming into this, but I feel a lot more comfortable being able to quickly edit videos and do stuff like that.
Okay, give so that we can clip this and use this in all future promotions for the summer internship, but 15 seconds on why somebody should do FBC's summer internship.
Putting me on the spot with this one.
Yeah, we'll cut all this part out where you're trying to decide what to say, because it's of course, in reality, it's such an obvious answer, and here it is.
You can obviously have one of the most productive summers of all time.
Oh.
I know in the past I haven't had.
Oh, yeah.
I've had summers where I work at like summer camps, but for this, I was doing stuff the entire time, and surprisingly, a church has a lot more for you to do than you might think. So I've been staying busy, and you meet great people, and you just grow in your relationship with the Lord and help others as well.
Great. That was good. Thank you.
It's longer than 15 seconds. But
That's okay. I'm sure Eli the Wizard can clip that down to use it like we want. Okay, so you're wearing a Walt Disney shirt. Tell us a little bit about what's next for you.
so, right after I get back from summer camp, I've got one day, and then the next day I am driving down to Orlando, Florida for the Disney College program all semester long. So I won't be
Holy
back here in
cow.
Topeka till January 7th.
Holy cow. You have one day between summer camp and this program. That's nuts. Okay. And how did you hear about it? And does this also fit into your kind of sports media or media in general
So
major?
I found out about it through my sister. She had done the college program last fall. And after she got back, I had a bunch of questions for her about it. And eventually that got me thinking, like, maybe I should do this. It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
You're down in Orlando for a whole semester, and you got free access to the parks as well. So, yeah, I applied and then got accepted. And then after a long interview process and all that, I was able to find out my role and what I'm doing. It doesn't necessarily directly
fit
connect
into your
in
stuff?
with my news and sports
Okay.
media,
Yeah.
but I feel like my social skills is something I can always work on.
Nice.
And so being able to work in such a high traffic environment like that is going to be really beneficial to me
Nice.
and how I continue to grow as a person.
What a
So-
great perspective. And if any of our families are headed down to Disney here in the next semester, where could they expect to find you?
I will be working festivals at Epcot. So I'll be at the front of the house, probably taking orders, serving drinks, handing out food.
Nice.
I'll probably be all over the
I
place.
mean, you're
maybe.
you're going to be an easy face to spot. Probably
Mhm.
you're going to be like front and center.
Yeah.
Okay, great, man. Excited for you, but also really praying that you get a lot of rest in that one day between summer camp and starting this next huge project.
Thankfully, my dad is driving down with me. So.
Perfect. You can sleep in the car.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Woo, baby. Good stuff. Dekan, I'm glad we were able to have you on the pod before you leave. We are going to transition into our kind of normally scheduled program here. We're picking up week 30 of the greatest story, and this is the last week of the Old Testament. So if you've gone to the service, you have sat through me preaching through the kind of timeline overview of all the stories that we've covered so far. And there's about 26 stories of the Old Testament that we cover. And we're coming to the end, and we cover Ezra and Nehemiah this week. And then we talk about Jesus coming up and looking forward to Jesus. But before we close the book, so to say, on the Old Testament, let me turn to the quick question of the day. QQOTD! And that is this. If somebody were to ask you what your favorite story in the Old Testament is, what would it be, and why is that your favorite?
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
All right. Well, I'm not sure if this was actually covered, but Joseph,
Yeah, for
The
sure.
Coat of Many Colors, is probably one of my favorites.
Like the whole story of Joseph, or that part where he gets
Just the part
coat?
with like he gets the coat, and then his brothers, like, just all that story.
Gosh, are we finding out something about Deacon? Is this because you have so many siblings and you
Maybe
wanted
it's
to?
because of that, but also there's a really good animated film. Why am I blanking on the name of it?
Is it called like? It's not Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, right? That's not. That's like an actual musical. That's probably not that one.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
It's an animated film, and I watched it all the time when I was younger. And so it really put a good idea of what that might have looked like back. I don't think it's like, I don't know how accurate it is.
Yeah.
But it was still very entertaining for me, and I learned a lot. And so that's just something that stuck with me.
Okay, great. I have to choose a different story now because Joseph was my answer. So
Oh.
I'm going to think about something else while Rich shares his.
Well, it comes from Exodus 3 and 4, and it's Moses when God appears to him in a burning bush.
Okay.
And the reason why is there are times he gets in the argument with God. God tells him, "Hey, I've heard my people. I'm going to free them." And I'm thinking, well, Moses is probably cheering that on. That's great news until God tells Moses, "And I'm going to use you." And then he comes up with I think there's like 5 different reasons.
Excuses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why that can't be, that he can't do that.
Yeah.
And so I love that conversation. And at the end, the 5th one is, finally he just flat out says no. Moses says, and God becomes angry. And then says, well, I'll send your brother with you. And so for me, it's like there's lots of times I can come up with excuses or reasons why not to. And that story just jumps out to me, resonates with me.
Love it. Great example. Since I can't do Joseph, I think I'd choose Elijah and the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. It's got there's some sarcasm and humor in there with Elijah kind of poking fun at him, but then the crazy display of God's power in sending fire from heaven to soak up the water and burn up the animals. And it's like this, such a beautiful picture of God just proving that he is God and that the other gods that they worship are nothing. So I love that story. And to have been in Israel and stand on Mount Carmel too just makes it richer. So just picturing being there and remembering how cool, this is a real place that really existed and this all really happened. It's just a good reminder sometimes. It's not just a story that we're reading. This is history. So
that's good, Doug.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that is good.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, so when we close and do Ezra and Nehemiah this week, and we cover kind of the story of the rest of the Old Testament, part of what I am going to talk about, obviously we're recording this ahead of time. I had run through this morning and received a lot of notes, so we're changing a lot of things. But something I feel confident about is pointing out the theme that God, throughout the entire Old Testament, is faithful. And he is described as a God who's merciful and gracious, abounding in steadfast love, slow to anger, and who exhibits faithfulness. And so in the midst of God being faithful through every different era, through every different story, he's always faithful. And then the truth is that our faithfulness, humanity's faithfulness, and his people's faithfulness goes in waves. You have some people who are great examples and great leaders and super faithful. And then most of the time, we just really stink and we are unfaithful to our faithful God. And so we're going to talk about that theme, and we're going to camp in Ezra and Nehemiah, because Ezra and Nehemiah are 2 great leaders at the very end of the Old Testament who try to call unfaithful people back into faithfulness with God. And so in Ezra, we see a person who studied and knew the Word of God and who dedicated his whole life to teaching it. And he comes back to Jerusalem from Babylon and sees that the people are living in sin, especially the leaders are living in sin, and they're intermarrying people who they're not supposed to marry. And he is just really ripped up in his spirit. So he tears his clothes and he cries and he sits down and he's appalled, it says. And through his reaction to sin and his calling of the people, they kind of turn and come back to God for a time. And they send away the women and the children. We'll talk about that. And then it's about, I want to say it's like 20 years later, Nehemiah comes and they rebuild the wall. And Nehemiah and Ezra kind of are working together. And they read the law in front of all of the people. And the people cry and turn back to God, and they learn about feasts of the booths and what they're supposed to do with Sabbath. And there's this revival. And I read that passage and I think Joe talks all the time about wanting to be part of a revival in Topeka. And these are some of the signs and pictures of what it looks like to be in a revival. There's confession of sin. There's a return to the Lord. There's a leaving of bad practices and habits, and so there's this beautiful picture. And then 15 years later, at the end of Nehemiah, we see him coming back and realizing that the people have drifted. They're not practicing the Sabbath. They've defiled the temple. So it's over and over again, even when they get called back and there's a great revival, it's only a little bit of time before their hearts drift back. And so I'm going to focus a lot about how great these 2 are and how we should be people who exhibit that kind of faithfulness in the midst of a culture and a world that so quickly drifts. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Let's have our discussion of, when we look at 21st century Topeka, Kansas, and or Dekan, I actually you have a lot of different experiences. You'd have homeschool, private school, public school, now public school university, and now you're about to go into Disney World, right? A lot of different kind of cultural experiences. And so when we see a cultural drift or a drift even in our church amongst believers or friends, how are we going to be Ezra's? How are we going to be Nehemiah's? How can we stand and be faithful leaders in the midst of unfaithfulness? So let's jump into that. I'll move one of these questions to the end. So what do you think it would look like to demonstrate faithfulness in a world of drift, and feel free to use an example or examples of people who you've seen do that well? Rich, why don't you go first on this?
Yeah. One of the examples that I can think of, Doug, is during the weekend service, during the announcements, we got to see and hear about a group of men who recently went to the Kansas Juvenile Correctional Complex through Young Life One. Many of the people who were there attend FBC, and held camp in the prison and shared the gospel of Jesus. Andy Vogel was the camp speaker. Guys, there was Dan and Andy and Lonnie and Greg and several of the guys. And I see that in this way of somebody who's faithful, who goes to everybody, every place should have a chance to hear about Jesus. And the risk of rejection, stepping into that world. Yeah.
That's scary. I mean, honestly, it's not a place that's easy to go to. So you had a group of guys. When was this? Was this summer? Was this?
Yeah, it was just
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago here in July. Yeah, that they did that. So that's one picture. Story that I see. The other one I will share with you is there's a gentleman named Doug Burley who's past president of Young Life, and in his early college years he was a leader for Young Life, and he had a school, and his mission was to reach sophomore boys, and he got on campus, went into the cafeteria, went to the table where the sophomore boys were eating lunch, and they knew he was coming, and in unison they told him "F you," got up and walked off. And Doug shares how all the eyes in that cafeteria were on him, and how lonely it felt to get up. And he left. It was the longest walk out of that cafeteria. And thought to himself, I'm no good at this. They rejected me. But he stuck with it. And later that summer, he shared how those same boys were in his cabin at camp.
That's crazy.
And they asked him, they said, hey, do you remember?
Also crazy that those boys all signed up and came to Young Life Camp. That's interesting. Okay.
And said, hey, do you remember? And Douglas shares out, boy, do I remember.
Yeah, of course.
And they told him, we just wanted to see if you'd come back.
Man.
And so the faithfulness for Ezra and Nehemiah after, 50 to 100 years after they'd been in exile. To step back into that.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's where I would see that faithfulness.
That's great. No surprise, both your stories were Young Life stories. Great stories, and you are repping the Young Life shirt too, I just noticed. So full on promotional for Young Life, which is great. One of our best partners. Yeah. You got anything, Deacon?
I was thinking about this for quite a bit, and like you mentioned earlier, I was homeschooled and then private schooled and public schooled.
Yeah.
The biggest switch was definitely private school to public school, because at private school you're used to living in a religious-based environment and you're around all these people, and then in public school, our faith is a lot quieter than it was. And so I had a couple friends in my hometown, Wamego. I'd grown up playing soccer with them in a rec league, and they kept a group called Fellowship of Christian Athletes, also known as FCA.
Yeah.
And they kept that running throughout their entire high school thing. And they found people that would want to continue it after them. And so I heard a lot of behind the back talking about them. And
like on that team, or just with other students?
Other people talking about them.
And
how they're just like, oh, it's so weird that they're doing this or whatever. But I really admire how they remained faithful and they continued pushing people to go every Friday morning to learn about the Lord. And unfortunately, I struggle waking up early, so I wasn't able to go that many times.
Dude, you didn't even have to admit that. I wasn't going to ask if you were actually there.
But when I did go, it was always great to see those people and know that they're, like, even in a public school environment like that, there are people that care about their faith, other people's faith, and want to grow closer to the Lord.
That's great. Yeah, when I think about specifically what Ezra and Nehemiah did, I feel like their example is tougher because they did it in the midst of the people of God who had drifted. And so it's easier for me to point out ways in which I can be faithful in the midst of a world that drifts and doesn't really care about their moral, ethical moorings, but just does whatever they want. But when I think about groups of Christians who kind of slowly accept sin as okay in their midst, it's really tough to be the person that's going to step into a community of people who claim to be Christians and call them out for something that they're doing. And I have a couple examples, and each time I'm in the group of the people who is being called out, who has slowly and gradually been okay with like something that's not good. And so I had so yeah, this will be confessional time. This is great. Freshman year of college, played a lot of video games, and in the video game culture, a lot of swearing, just like so many bad words. So I didn't really ever swear growing up, but freshman year and the freedom of being away from home and being a part of this, I just freely started swearing. And I had a guy who was brave enough on our floor at a Christian school when all of us were sitting around playing and just cursing, who came in, took the game out of the system while we were playing it, looked us in the eye, he's our age, to appear, and just said, "Is this really what you think Jesus wants of you?" And that's like an Ezra moment where I don't know if I got the boldness to do that to my peers, but when it was done to me, it was like, oh man, like I have drifted, and I needed somebody to react really strongly like Ezra and Nehemiah do in there. And when somebody else reacts super strongly to your sin, sometimes it snaps you out of it, right? It wakes you up to, wow, I've really just allowed myself to be okay with this. And that's a callback to reality. And another one was actually here at this church, in a group of people who had just, I think, become accustomed to a gossip being okay, to talking about other people and a not positive way. And one person on staff here coming into that meeting and being like, hey, I don't think this is honoring to God when we do this. And it's not honoring to the people. If they were here, how do you think they would feel? And it was, again, another wake-up call of, okay, I need somebody to be faithful because I tend to drift. I'll allow myself to drift if I'm not called out. And so those were a couple times that I remember just being very impressed with others who stepped in and did it in this kind of pocket of believers. So let me ask you a different question. It's kind of related, but in your circles of Christian experience, right? You guys both have a lot of years of being around Christians. If you were just going to mention or call out a couple of the ways in which you've seen groups of believers kind of allow drift to happen, what are some attitudes, maybe cultural attitudes that people have taken on and seem to be okay with that are not okay, or habits or practices that it seems like we've kind of deadened ourselves to, that you feel like maybe we need to be called out of, or people need to be called out of? Anything on that front? Sorry to just dump that on you.
I got a really close friend group of about 8 guys,
okay.
8 or 9 guys, and we hang out maybe every other week. And there is a pair of twins in that friend group, and
so they definitely know who you're talking about now. If they're listening, we're gonna send it to them.
Yeah,
that's great.
Well, they are very good at holding the rest of the group accountable with whatever it is we're doing. They're very like down to earth people as well. Yeah. And although at sometimes we will make fun of them, I will admit this, we make fun of them, but like we all know that we should be more like them. Yeah. And they do a good job like calling us out for stuff that maybe we shouldn't be doing. Most of the time it's like maybe music that we're listening to or something we're wanting to watch. And they're always like so quick to bring out Plugged In and like read reviews on stuff.
Look at that. So that's awesome to have those friends. That's so great.
But it's just nice to know that they're there to keep us accountable and just keep us glorifying God in what we do.
That's awesome. Dude, shout out to the twins. What were the names? Ezra, Nehemiah?
The twin friends? They're Ethan and Eli.
Oh, so close. Oh, okay. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Rich, you got anything?
Yeah, confession time.
Yeah, okay, great.
So, well,
Join me.
join you in that. This is a pretty simple one that I have caught myself in and others when I've become critical and made fun of people who attend worship on Christmas and Easter.
Oh man.
And, we even have a name.
Yeah, we
the
do.
Creasters, right?
The CEOs, yeah.
And kind of poke fun at them, be critical of them. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Some of those people, why would I be self-righteous and judge them? And
Yeah, that's good.
Instead, should have a heart of thankfulness. Say, they're here.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of them will be back, but some will.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more I also think about alcohol. I think alcohol used to be super taboo in evangelical circles and slowly has become, I think, just more accepted. And now I feel like I'm to the point now where I see a lot of Christians overindulging in alcohol, but I never see a repentance from that or like even a recognition that that's a sin. And so that's another one that comes to my brain of like, okay, what does it look like for me to be a person that calls that out or is faithful in the midst of that drift? So what are you smiling at, Deacon?
Wouldn't we also have to say television?
I mean, general media consumption. Oh, wait, like what we're watching or how much?
Just what we're watching.
Okay.
I mean, growing up from a different generation, right? It was Gunsmoke and...
Happy Days and what?
No, not so much that.
No.
Andy Griffith.
Okay.
And wow, now today.
Yeah.
It's we can slide into
Yeah,
that. Well, it's just TV. Well,
yeah. That's a great one too. Yeah, drift into the kind of media we're consuming. What is this guy smiling about? You think? Look at that smirk. You don't have to share.
I don't know if I should share.
Okay, sounds good. We'll keep moving. Okay. Okay, so going into the bigger, kind of broader picture, just anything specific stood out to you as we've been going through the Old Testament, 30 weeks in the Old Testament as part of the greatest story. Has there anything that you've really learned that you've loved or has stuck with you as we've kind of talked about these stories?
Daniel's always a good one.
That's great. Dude, Deacon, way to share. You've only been here for like 6 of the 30. Right? So that's great. Sorry, just saying thank you. Get in there, Daniel.
Yeah, just acknowledging his faithfulness towards God. That's a pretty tough situation that he was in.
Yeah.
And how much he was willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Just so he could honor the Lord. So that's always a good story that I enjoy hearing more about.
Yeah. I feel like there's only a couple people in the OT that are all good, right? Even with some of the good people like David, Abraham, you get these little stories that you're like, oh, that's kind of gross or that's pretty sinful. Daniel's one of those guys that just like, I don't know if he ever does anything bad in the story. He's such a great example. Yeah. Good one there. Rich, anything you've picked out or stood out to you?
Just the repeated theme of God's faithfulness, the repeated theme of us drifting away, and God is in the business of second chances.
Nice, yeah.
And we see that here this week in Ezra. That's what just jumps out at me.
Nice. I think each time I read through the Bible, something new jumps out at me, like a new theme. And this year it was leadership, how important spiritual leadership is to the rest of the body. So anytime there's a good judge, a good king, a good ruler, maybe even a good prophet, the people follow the Lord. And it's like, wow, that's a great turn of events. And as soon as that person dies or is replaced or somebody else comes on the scene, it's like the people immediately drift again. I don't think I've ever realized how tied in it is to the leader in the moment. It also convicts me as like somebody who is a leader in this church. There's a weight and authority to that leadership that has real repercussions. So anyway, that's the one that stood out to me this time through. It's been interesting. Okay, let's transition to the cutting room floor. So tell me, what in Ezra specifically? So we did the whole book of Ezra was our reading for the daily Devo. So what in Ezra, and or if you want to use Nehemiah, that's great too. Did you want to talk about that we know is not going to make the sermon? Rich, you first.
Okay, yeah, chapter 4. At that point, it's King Axe. Doug, pronounce his name for me. would you?
Artaxerxes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I like Axe, though. It's cool. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How he was lobbied to stop the construction.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. Wrote a letter and said, stop. And wow, that had to be discouraging.
Yeah.
And how in our life, when we feel called by the Lord to serve in some way, and then something from the outside world stops it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's you're on a school campus trying to reach students, and then you get a new administration, and they say, "Hey, we're not letting you on campus anymore."
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
Also in chapter 7
Yeah.
is chapter. I think it's chapter
Chapter 1?
when Cyrus.
Yeah. The first guy, Cyrus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Lord stirs his heart.
Yeah.
To send people back to rebuild the temple, and not only that, he says, "Hey, all the stuff that was we looted,
We took in the first place. I guess Nebuchadnezzar took, but yeah.
yeah, let's get it out of storage,
Yeah.
and
Open up the storage units.
and send it back." And it lists all those
Yeah.
items: the gold, the silver.
Yeah.
And, wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading that and being like, what king, especially in those days, what king just gives all of his riches away and says, yeah, take it back to where you are, build up your kingdom. I mean, that just feels like such a movement of the Lord. So divine, could only have happened that way, because it's crazy. Who does that?
Yeah, and if you were part of the group of that was going back to Jerusalem, wouldn't you have been just a tad bit skeptical of all this?
Because it seems too good to be true.
Well, yeah. What? We're been here for 50-some years as exiles. Now you're sending the loot.
It did seem a little too good to be true.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing that stood out to me, if you were reading in your daily Devo, and I don't think we cover it, so this is just for those of you who are confused. Chapter 4 is a weird one. Hopefully you have a study Bible that helped you, but 1 through 4, we're talking about Cyrus and Sheshbazzar, who maybe is Zerubbabel, and this rebuilding of the temple. And then it stops at verse 5, and then he jumps forward 40 years in verse 6 without any warning, and then another 20 years in verse 7 without another warning. So Ahasuerus or Xerxes, that was actually the ruler during the time of Esther. So Joe talked about Ahasuerus/Xerxes last week, and then Artaxerxes/King Axe, as we're definitely calling him from here on out because of how much cooler that name is. King Axe is during the time of when Ezra actually lived, so later. So there's this really confusing jump in the middle of the chapter to these later letters. He kind of says, we had some opposition, just like there was opposition then, and just like there was opposition in my day. And then in chapter 5, he jumps right back. He jumps back 60 years again. Mm-hmm. So it's a very confusing, if you're just reading it and you don't have a study Bible and you don't know who Ahasuerus and Artaxerxes are, you're not going to know what's going on there. But yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. That is a confusing piece, and hopefully somebody out there has that set straight now. So I'm going to point out the struggle that most people have at the end of Ezra. So when Ezra comes back and he finds out that all of the leaders have intermarried, he sits and he mourns and he cries out to God. And then the people gather around and they say, basically, what should we do to fix this problem? And this is a serious problem of leadership, because you have two things. It's like a lose-lose here. You have a bunch of people who have married and then maybe have kids now, but they've married foreign wives who don't follow Yahweh and have kids now. So you can either leave them in the midst of the people of God, which God has already said is going to lead them astray, or you can have all of those people divorce them, and then you are breaking a bunch of marriages and sending those people away as like maybe a wife and a kid without somebody to take care of them. So the sin of the people has put them in between a rock and a hard place. And so you look at Ezra and you're like, man, you got a really tough decision to make. And it turns out, he says, I think what's best is that it appears that they met with each of these kind of people, and it was about 100 according to the list in there. And they talked, it sounds like they probably talked to the women, and some of the children were like, are you willing to follow Yahweh? Are you willing basically to convert? And if so, then they kept them as part of the nation. And if not, they said, okay, well, we are forcing this person to divorce you and send you back to your home, basically to your families. And so it's this very messy thing that just shows, first of all, sin has serious consequences, right? Your sin messes up other people's lives too. And then God, at the same time, the only other book that appears after this is Malachi, and one of the most famous verses of Malachi from God is, I hate divorce. So it's like, man, I hate this, and it still is probably the best option for this. So people struggle with the end of it. They're like, well, how would God be okay with divorce? And it doesn't seem, God never says this is what you should do, but he kind of quietly in the background, it seems like, is okay with this movement from a righteous Ezra to do that. So that's a tough one, but something I'm not going to have time to properly parse out in my message. So I thought we'd talk about it here in case people were like, this seems messed up. It is kind of messed up. It's hard. Do you got anything, Deacon, you want to point out?
No, I think you did a pretty good job covering
Great. Okay.
mostly everything.
The other thing that I think is funny, and I'm not sure if I'll point this out, but I might, is the difference between Ezra's reaction and Nehemiah's reaction to sin. So when Ezra finds out of all the sin, he sits, he rips his clothes, and then it says he pulls out his hair and his beard. And then in Nehemiah at the end, when he comes back and finds everybody sinning, he pulls out their hair and their beards and beats them up. And that was just interesting. And again, neither of them were said to be wrong or right in any specific way, but you can either set an example for people in your own sorrow for sin, or you can hold them accountable physically by plucking out their beard. And I think we should live into that more. Deacon, you're getting a beard. It's growing.
Yeah.
You better be careful, dude.
I gotta shave like every 4 days. So if I wait a week, it's people start
asking.
Yeah, there's like, are you growing a beard? What's going on, guys?
Anything else from you, Rich?
Question for you, Doug.
Yeah.
So when you have approached people who are in sin, and they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Isn't one of the typical responses something like, well, are you judging me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've probably heard that.
Yeah, for sure. Who are you to judge me?
How do you, what's your general response to something like that? I mean, one of the more common things in our culture today would be couples living together.
Oh, yeah.
And so they show up in your office maybe to do marriage counseling or something. And my guess is that you'd say, well, first of all, that needs to end. And so how do you respond to
good question.
to you're judging me? Or
Yeah. It's pretty easy to quickly say, man, I am not judging you because I know that I'm super messed up. And here are some of my sins that I struggle with. And just to get that out of the way so they know that I'm not in a position of feeling like I'm better than them. But then I go to, I'm not judging you. The Bible is judging you. Like, let's look at the actual authority. I'm not the authority over your life, but God is the authority over your life. And generally, you're only doing this with people who are believers, right? I'm not going to unbelievers, obviously, and telling them they need to change their ways. So these are people who have claimed to submit to the authority of God in the Bible. So I just kind of get myself out of the way and say, hey, let's look at this. The Bible is telling you what you're doing is wrong. If you're not submitted to the Bible, I don't know that, you're truly submitted to God. You should probably, take some time and think and pray about that. And once couples living together, that's a little bit tougher because some people fight back because it's not clearly in the Bible, right? One way or the other. They're like, it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that we can't live together. And so then you have to draw lines between sexual immorality and temptation and fleeing from sin into those conversations. But generally, that's how I do it. Yeah, just say, hey, you're right. Who am I to judge you? I'm super messed up, but it's not me that's judging you anyway. So how do you do it?
That's a great response.
Oh,
Yeah, I
great.
like your answer.
Okay, great.
Seems like if I can regurgitate
Yep.
what you shared is step one is you discern whether they're a believer or not.
Yeah. Before that conversation is even had. Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
So assuming they are,
Yeah.
then you immediately go to, hey, I'm going to confess to you, I'm not perfect. It's not me, but it's what I see here.
Yeah.
And see if there's a
Yeah.
difference of opinion. Somehow they see it differently, the word differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it. Build me up right now. That's great. But we have had conversations in premarital with couples who are living together who we know that they don't actually believe. And so we say, hey, as Christians, this is what we believe God calls us to as the best. And so we would encourage you to do that. And then we continue with the premarital counseling. But yeah, it's pretty tough to do. It's pretty tough to find common ground for calling people out if they do not believe what you believe about God.
Yeah, I feel like with Ezra, and we're called to call out sin when we see it, that can be a common response that we're fearful of receiving or how to respond. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Deb.
Sweet. Yeah, great. Okay, let's have Rich. Will you pray for me as I make a bunch of changes to the sermon that it makes sense and is clear? But then will you pray for the people who are listening to this? And actually, you want to go ahead and include Dekan in there and pray for him as he goes into his next step of the journey?
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for these stories that you provided us. Specifically, we pray for your servant Doug, that you would use him to teach our congregation about your faithfulness, how to call out sin when we see it, how to be leaders in a way that will bring glory to you. So I pray the Holy Spirit would stir in Doug, that the words that would come out of his mouth would be your words, and that as a congregation, including all of us, Father, that we would lean in and be curious and take it to heart, what you're trying to teach us through your word. And we pray for our brother Dekan as he travels to Orlando, where he will be placed squarely in the world. We pray that he would be a reflection there of your Son, and that would bring honor to you. It would be bring questions from other people he's serving with. Other college students are there who are on internships. They would see the difference in him compared to the world, and that would lead to conversations where someone who doesn't know your Son would have a chance to meet him. And we'd give all that glory to you, Father. So thank you most of all for your patience with us, and that you would send your Son here to die for us when we had our back turned against him. And it's in Jesus' powerful name we pray, and we all say,
Amen. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Deacon, thanks for coming on, man. And thanks for serving this summer.
Yeah, it's been great.
Good. Rich, thank you. Thank you, Fellowship family, for tuning in to this week's episode of the Deeper Podcast, and we will catch you all next time.